Today, you can travel across a city you have never visited and arrive at the correct building within minutes. You do not need to know which direction is north. You do not need to remember the river you crossed, the shape of the skyline, or the position of the sun. You simply obey a sequence of instructions. Turn left in 300 meters. Take the second exit. Your destination is on the right. And here's the strange part: you can arrive successfully while learning almost nothing about where you actually are. One study found that heavier GPS use was associated with noticing fewer landmarks and forming weaker mental maps during navigation. Its longitudinal sample was small, so it should not be treated as the final word, but it suggests that navigation technology does more than help us find places. It may allow us to stop constructing the journey ourselves. Now remove the phone, remove the road network, street names, printed maps, and compass. Then go back tens of thousands of years. How did people travel through forests, deserts, and open plains without becoming permanently lost? The answer begins with a surprising possibility. Ancient humans may not have experienced getting lost in quite the same way we do. Imagine a Paleolithic traveler walking away from camp. We cannot know exactly how this person thought. Archaeology preserves stone, bone, and traces of fire, not private thoughts. So any answer must combine archaeological evidence with cognitive science and cautious comparisons to more recently documented traditional navigators. But those comparisons reveal something important. Modern people often treat the landscape as empty space containing destinations. Ancient travelers probably experienced familiar territory as a dense network of relationships. A water source was not simply over there, it was downstream from one ridge, beyond a particular hunting ground, and reached when the afternoon light struck a certain slope. Location was relational. To become lost was not merely to forget a path. It was to lose the connection between your body, the landscape, and the shared knowledge of your community. And ancient navigation worked by constantly protecting that connection. Every time you walk, your brain updates your position. It combines the direction of your steps, the distance traveled, your turns, balance signals from the inner ear, and the movement of the world across your vision. This process is called path integration. Close your eyes and take 3 steps forward, turn right, and take 2 more. You still retain a rough sense of where you began. But path integration accumulates error. Walk around a tree, descend a slope, chase an animal, and change direction repeatedly, and your internal estimate begins to drift. This is why humans lost in featureless terrain may unknowingly walk in circles. An experienced traveler cannot eliminate that error. Instead, they continually correct it. A distant ridge confirms direction. A stream restores position. The sun provides a stable reference. The internal map and the external world repeatedly check each other. The crucial difference is that an ancient traveler could not wait until becoming confused to begin navigating. Navigation was happening during every step of the outward journey. The route home was being constructed before it was needed. Popular survival advice often searches for one secret: follow moss, watch migrating birds, use the North Star, follow water downhill. But real wayfinding is more complicated. Moss does not reliably identify north, rivers may lead away from home, stars can disappear behind clouds or forest canopy. Traditional navigation systems are powerful precisely because they do not depend on a single clue. A navigator might combine the angle of sunlight, prevailing winds, slope direction, animal movement, vegetation, sound, water flow, and remembered travel time. Each clue contains uncertainty. But when several independent clues point toward the same conclusion, confidence increases. Researchers studying traditional navigation describe it as an integrated information system adapted to a specific environment, not a universal collection of tricks. The cues useful on tundra are different from those useful at sea or inside a rainforest. Ancient humans were not carrying a compass inside their skulls. They were making continuous predictions. If camp lies beyond the western ridge, then the stream should bend south before reaching it. If it does not, something in the mental model is wrong. Navigation was less like following an arrow and more like testing a theory against the landscape. Consider how far this ability can develop. Researchers tested 54 Mbengele Bayaka participants in the Republic of Congo, standing inside dense rainforest where distant landmarks were largely hidden. Participants were asked to point toward locations they could not see. Their median pointing error was approximately 6 degrees. That is an extraordinary level of orientation in an environment many outsiders would experience as visually repetitive. The sun improved the performance of younger participants, while experienced adults remained highly accurate even when conditions were cloudier. This does not mean a contemporary community is a fossilized copy of Paleolithic humanity. It demonstrates something more useful. Human orientation is highly trainable. A forest only looks empty when you have not learned which information matters. To a skilled navigator, differences in light, terrain, vegetation, and travel history create structure where an inexperienced person sees chaos. Ancient navigation also depended on long-term memory. The brain does not store a territory like a perfectly scaled satellite image. It remembers landmarks, routes, boundaries, events, and relationships between significant places. The hippocampus plays an important role in organizing these relationships into flexible cognitive maps. That flexibility matters because the exact route used yesterday may be blocked today. Suppose a flooded river destroys the usual crossing. A person who memorized only a sequence, left at the tree, right at the rocks, may be trapped. But someone who understands that the camp lies beyond the river, south of the ridge, and upstream from a marsh can improvise another route. That is the difference between route knowledge and a broader cognitive map. And these maps were probably filled with meaning. The unusual rock was where an animal was killed. The narrow pass was where a relative was injured. The water hole was associated with a seasonal gathering. Emotion and narrative made geographic information difficult to forget. The landscape became an archive. But the most important map was not contained inside one person. It was distributed across the group. One traveler knew a distant water source. Another remembered where game moved during a drought. An older member knew which valley became dangerous after heavy rain. Children acquired this knowledge by accompanying adults, exploring, observing, and hearing stories connected to particular places. Research on forager oral traditions identifies wayfinding information, how to locate food, water, and shelter while avoiding hazards, as a major category of knowledge that stories can transmit. This transformed navigation into cultural inheritance. A person did not need to personally discover every dangerous crossing. Someone else's mistake could be encoded in a story and carried for generations. Modern GPS stores geographic knowledge outside the mind, inside a device. Ancient cultures also stored navigation outside the individual, but inside other people, names, rituals, and narratives. Their map was social. Now imagine that a traveler actually loses orientation. The sun is hidden. Familiar landmarks have disappeared. Path integration has accumulated too much error. At this point, navigation becomes a problem of risk management. Continuing to move may increase the chance of recognizing something. It also increases the search area, consumes energy, and creates additional opportunities for injury. Stopping preserves energy and allows companions to search from the last known location, but only if shelter, temperature, and water make stopping survivable. There was no universally correct decision. A navigator had to estimate probabilities. How certain am I of this direction? How much daylight remains? Will the group search? Is water nearby? Can I survive the night here? Ancient survival was not the performance of a memorized technique. It was decision-making under uncertainty. And occasionally, every available decision was bad. Some lost travelers did not return. The group searching for a missing traveler possessed another advantage. They did not only know the terrain, they knew the missing person. Would this hunter return to the last animal trail? Would this child follow the stream? Would this experienced traveler climb for visibility or shelter near a known rock formation? The searchers could predict behavior because navigation was built from shared habits. Both sides were solving the same landscape from opposite directions. A smoke column, a call, footprints, or disturbed vegetation might complete the connection. The rescue did not depend on one miraculous clue. It depended on overlapping knowledge of terrain, movement, and one another. So, how did ancient humans survive getting lost? Not because every person possessed an infallible sense of direction, not because nature conveniently pointed toward home, and not because ancient people never made fatal mistakes. They survived by rarely allowing navigation to become passive. They updated their position while traveling. They corrected internal estimates with multiple environmental cues. They built flexible maps rather than memorizing instructions. And they embedded geographic knowledge inside an entire culture. Today, GPS tells us where to go while asking almost nothing from us. Ancient wayfinding demanded the opposite. Attention had to remain active because every step produced information. The greatest difference between us and an ancient traveler is not that they had a mysterious ability we have lost. It is that navigation was never separate from the journey. For them, knowing where they were was not something checked on a screen. It was a relationship with the world that had to be maintained continuously. And once that relationship broke, survival depended on rebuilding it before the landscape became impossible to read.